Welcome to Midnight Mirage Stories, where story feels real but not.
Welcome back. Midnight Mirage presents He Enter Her Theater. Narrated by Isabel Crow. He entered her theater at 6:42 a.m., just as the first line of gold sunlight slipped through the narrow hospital window and stretched across the polished floor. Theater 3. That was what the sign said in sterile blue letters above the double doors. But to him, it had already become something else, her theater. Evan Hale had run into burning buildings for 12 years without hesitation. He had carried children out of smoke-thick bedrooms and dragged strangers from crushed cars. He had known the roar of fire like an old enemy's voice. Yet nothing had prepared him for the quiet beeping of monitors or the stillness of lying flat on his back, waiting for someone else to decide when he could move. 3 weeks earlier, a warehouse roof had collapsed under him. He remembered the cracking beam, the rain of sparks, and the heat folding in like a closing fist. After that, there was only white. Now there was white again, white walls, white sheets, white light. And her. Nurse Alara Monroe moved through the room like she belonged to the quiet. Her dark hair was tied back neatly, her posture straight but never stiff. She carried warmth without noise, like the steady glow of embers after flames die down. When she first introduced herself, he had been half-drugged and irritated at the world. "I'm not staying," he had muttered. She didn't flinch. "That's fine," she had said gently, adjusting his foreline. "But while you are, I'll make sure you're comfortable." No pity. No dramatics. Just calm certainty. He hadn't expected to look forward to the sound of footsteps in a hospital corridor. Yet each morning he found himself listening for hers, the soft, rhythmic approach that stopped outside his door before pushing it open with quiet confidence. This morning was different. Today was surgery day. Metal rods would stabilize his fractured femur. Doctors had assured him it was routine. Fire never scared him. Anesthesia did. He hadn't planned it. It was instinct, the same reflex that once reached for a hose line in smoke-blind darkness. Her fingers tightened around his without hesitation. "I'll be there," she said quietly. "I'll stay through prep." The hallway lights passed overhead in steady succession, like counting down seconds. Inside Theater 3, the air felt colder. Brighter. Machines stood in readiness. The surgical team prepared instruments with efficient precision. Alara stayed at his side while the anesthesiologist explained the procedure. "You'll feel sleepy," the doctor said. Evan's grip on her hand tightened. "Hey," she murmured softly, leaning closer so only he could hear. "You've faced worse than this." "That's different." "How?" "I could fight back." She held his gaze steadily. "Sometimes strength is letting someone else fight for you." The mask lowered over his face. He watched her eyes as the edges of his vision blurred. "Stay," he whispered. "I'm right here." Darkness folded in. When he woke, the world returned in fragments, light, sound, a dull ache in his leg. And her voice. "Surgery went well." His eyes opened slowly. She stood beside him in recovery, no clipboard now, just concern softened by relief. "You're stubborn," she said. "But you heal well." He tried to speak. It came out hoarse. "You stayed." "I said I would." Days passed after that, pain eased into soreness. Soreness into stiffness. Physical therapy began. He hated every minute of it. Walking felt like betrayal, his body no longer trusted him. But she was there. Not always hovering, never smothering. Just present. One afternoon, he struggled with the parallel bars, jaw clenched, sweat gathering at his temple. "I don't need help," he snapped when she stepped closer. "I know," she replied calmly. "But you deserve it." He paused. No one had ever framed support that way for him. Not as weakness. Not as charity. As something deserved. He took another step. Then another. Later, sitting on the edge of his bed, he watched her chart notes near the window. "You ever think about leaving?" he asked. "Leaving what?" "This place." She considered it. "Sometimes." "Why don't you?" She glanced around the room, the machines, the quiet hum of life continuing. "Because this is where people walk back into themselves." He swallowed. "And you?" she asked gently. "When you're cleared, will you go back?" The question had been circling him for days. Firefighting was who he was. Or had been. "I don't know," he admitted. "That's okay." Silence stretched between them, not empty, but full. He realized something then. Fire had always been about rushing into chaos. This slow rebuilding, was a different kind of courage. The night before his discharge, he couldn't sleep again. He stared at the ceiling until her shift check brought her into the room. "You're thinking loudly," she said, leaning against the counter. He huffed a quiet laugh. "Is it obvious?" "Very." He hesitated. Firefighters weren't trained for this part, for vulnerability stripped of adrenaline. "I don't want to leave," he said finally. Her expression softened. "Because it's safe?" He shook his head. "Because you're here." The words settled heavily in the air. She didn't look away. "Elara, He stopped, uncertain. She stepped closer to the bed. "You met me on a bad day. You saw me at my worst." "I saw you scared," she corrected gently. "That's not the same." He searched her face for doubt and found none. "I don't know what this is," he admitted. "Neither do I." Her honesty steadied him more than reassurance ever could. "But," she added, "you're being discharged tomorrow. Which means if you want to see me again, it can't be because you're my patient." He felt his heart stumble in a way no monitor could measure. "Coffee?" he asked. She smiled, slow, real, and unguarded. "After your follow-up appointment. I expect you to show up walking." "I will." The next morning, he stood at the hospital exit with crutches tucked under his arms. Sunlight poured through the glass doors, brighter than it had any right to be. She walked him down the hall but stopped short of the threshold. "This is as far as I go," she said. He looked back at Theater 3's corridor, the place he had entered broken and left mending. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For staying." Her gaze held his. "You did the hard part." He stepped into the sunlight, feeling the weight on his leg, the promise in his chest. He had run into flames without fear. But walking toward something new, toward her, felt braver still. And this time, he wasn't alone. If this story captivates you, give this video a like. Subscribe if you are new. Press the notification bell to know when a new video is posted. Don't forget to leave a comment. Your feedback is important to this channel. See you here next time at Midnight Mirage.